Hello, I'm Dr. Kathy O'Bear with the Center for Transformation and Change, and I'm excited to offer a comprehensive skill professional development package of incredible resources, Envision 2020, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Virtual Conference. You'll get videos, training materials, lots of worksheets, all in one place, ready to use now and in the future. And you can use one track, you can buy two, you can buy all three tracks to create in-house virtual trainings this conference season. While some folks are off traveling, doing professional development, you can create your own live conference or virtual conference using these resources. Now, I created this virtual conference to really help leaders, organizational change trainers develop the capacity of leaders, managers, supervisors, employees to really deepen their capacity to create equitable, inclusive organizations. Too often it's left to one or two people who are motivated or a senior diversity equity officer. And so we really have to accelerate everyone's responsibility to create employee engagement, full breadth of differences, so we have greater productivity, greater innovation, greater services to our customers and our clients. And you're going to find an extensive library of videos, recordings, and all these training materials to develop awareness at all three levels of my trifocal model of organizational change. Let me show you what I mean. At the individual level, now you notice trifocals, I literally have them. There are three different levels. Most organizations, without thinking, only focus at the individual level and invest lots of training and resources that honestly they have to keep repeating. They talk about the business case, why it's important, here's our expectations. We want everyone to be valued and respected in the organization. They might teach some knowledge, some skills, some concepts in hopes that the conceptual knowledge will be enough to create change, facilitate behavior change. Now, you know enough that just knowing something and talking about it once a year is not going to have the consistent, repetitive, learning, scaffolded development that's needed. Now, some workshops at the individual level might also do some socialization, maybe some tools to create a respectful work environment. So these are critical, necessary, but they're not sufficient. We have to really then look at the group level, that middle level. And to be honest, for years in my work, I didn't talk about groupness. I talked about the need for change and we have to do it, but I didn't understand that we have to have people recognize the full breadth of differences in all the privileged, marginalized identities, all the intersecting identities, and to really understand the differential experiences of people in privileged groups compared to people in marginalized. Not only do we have to hold the full breadth of differences, people also need to understand how do I then speak up, intervene at the interpersonal level and organizational level. And so I designed the first track, Interrupting Interpersonal Aggressions, Microaggressions, Critical Skills for Creating High-Performing Inclusive Teams, to really deepen the capacity of all employees, all supervisors, managers, leaders, to give you those resources so they can recognize the full breadth of microaggressions for the full breadth of particularly people in marginalized identities, those daily indignities that undermine productivity, creativity, innovation. And then what can they do? How can they speak up in the moment? This is a foundational skill set that everyone needs to realize they're all responsible for doing their part to create high-performing, high-inclusive teams. Now, the second track, which really also focuses at that group level, Interrupting Racism, Deepening the Capacity of Whites to Partner to Create Racially Just Organizations. Now, that's a mouthful. What I found in my experience as a white person is many of us sit back on the sidelines and expect people of color to carry all the load, all the emotional labor to create organizational change, take all the risk. And what I'm committed to is these resources will help you, tools, strategies to help other whites and people with white skin privilege get the courage, the capacity to notice microaggressions and systemic embedded institutional racism and white supremacy culture embedded in how we do things. Learn how to effectively partner with other people of color, other people that are indigenous, multiracial, biracial, to really dismantle the dynamics of racism in interpersonal dynamics, climate, as well as organizational practices, policies, services, products. And to do it intentionally and collaboratively with whites as partners, colleagues, not taken over, not being the white savior, but working with, following the leadership of folks of color. Now, the insights and the lessons you can use if you really use this track to go in depth around racism, white supremacy, and dismantling that to create true equity and inclusion. You can learn how to do that work for people in their privileged identities, and you can take similar skills and concepts and apply them to the rest of the full breadth of differences to really improve teamwork, productivity, innovation, retention, employee engagement. So use these same tools to develop socially just organization full breadth. Now, these are necessary, but also still not sufficient. The third level of the trifocal is organizational level. Now, most organizations need many more leaders, senior equity inclusion leaders, as well as change agents of the organization who are equipped to design and facilitate and lead meaningful systemic culture change, which is very long-term. And so the third lens is often the least developed. So the third virtual conference track, create inclusive organization, fostering meaningful, sustainable organizational change. In this one, you'll have the tools and resources to help executive leaders, your senior equity inclusion leaders, equity, diversity, change teams, whether it's a system level or at the unit level, really deepen their capacity to lead meaningful change and to understand all is involved in the complex dynamics, whether it's resistance to anticipate it, whether it's creating the infrastructure they need to have more and more people, whether they're facilitators, inclusion partners, unit change teams, as well as skill up everyone with the capacity, starting with those managers and supervisors for sure, to analyze every policy, practice, program, or service with an equity lens. And how do you then revise them? And when you're planning, developing, you have a full breadth of differences literally on your screen as you're doing this. So you're meeting the people's needs, not just the people in privileged groups, but everyone's needs. Skilling everyone up, holding them accountable, making sure they know it's their responsibility for continuous progress, creating greater inclusion in everything they do. So imagine what's possible. Envision 2020, a very different year. What could you do with this rich library, ready-to-use videos, worksheets, all in one place? Virtual workshops, comprehensive workshop materials, all right there that you can use now or in the future. So here are some ways that I think you can get the most out of 1, 2, or all 3 tracks, however many you want to purchase now, or maybe you purchase in the future. So you can sponsor virtual in-person trainings right now, conferences, and this can be a one-day conference. You can spread it out over several days. You can do it whether this is spring, winter, fall, summer, whenever you want to, for leaders, employees, while some of your employees are off at conferences traveling. What I know, when my colleagues got the investments to be able to go off and I sat back and I was like, what am I, right? How come I didn't get to go? This could be a way to address the needs of many people who may not have the opportunity to travel or the resources to travel. Now, you can also use these resources over time. You can work with HR, your organizational change folks, your trainers, to develop a 12 or 18-month in-house professional development program. You can use what you're already training. These might augment, or you can take clips of my different videos for leaders, managers, staff, diversity councils, HR professional development, so it can be for everyone or for individual divisions or units. And I think these clips could be useful preparing people who are doing employee onboarding, the new training in those first several weeks or months, or you can use some of these resources actually with the employees so that they realize your commitment to equity, inclusion, and social justice. So also thinking if you're doing mentoring, either with new employees or current employees that are high performing, those mentors need development. And so the mentor trainers, as well as these resources, could be very useful for the mentors themselves. A few of the ways that I think you can get the most out of this virtual conference process. When you're doing trainings already or retreats for departments, divisions, you could use some of this as pre-work assignments, whether it's my books that you'll get free access to, some of the handouts as pre-work, maybe have them watch a full webinar around equity inclusion, whether it's the microaggression webinar, self-care, you can get the webinar around creating inclusive teams, around interrupting racism. So it can all be pre-work, so they come in already warmed up and prepared. We know not everyone will do it, but if a bulk of them do it, that'll make that training even more engaging and can move faster and deeper. I also think it can be used as post-workshop activities. Have people again, look at the book, handouts, a couple videos, to have them really get the learning transferred into the workplace and reinforce it. What I'm most excited about is you'll get at least one, and I think in the creating inclusive organizations, you get two actual trainings in the box. I developed and led live 3-hour trainings. I had many organizations do this. They had a site coordinator who facilitated the activities, but I was teaching. And so what you'll have is a 3-hour video, and all the worksheets and the slides are right there live, of me leading a workshop on these different topics. And so you can use it as a 3-hour workshop, split it in thirds or halves, and actually bring people together. You just have to have someone on site who will then facilitate the conversations. I introduce the activities, so you'd pause, facilitate them. I have lists of debrief questions. You'd pause, debrief. So I have lots of information there that's right there. I also think people can use these, what I call virtual institutes, these 3-hour in-the-box workshops. If you have trainers already or people that want to do training, can augment your Train the Trainer program. And so they can watch it to learn how I teach and then shift it, adjust it, or they can prepare to literally use parts of that as they're doing the trainings on these topics. Book clubs, employee resource groups might love some of these to develop their employees that are coming. Any and all ways that you do professional development, I believe the resources I'm offering in one and all 3 tracks can be useful for you to continue to bring new information in and not have to have fully trained people inside to do the work. This can really be scaffolded to help them do it. To have all these key virtual resources all in one place, ready to reuse over time. I believe this low-cost, very high-value investment in professional development will help you accelerate the capacity of leaders, change agents, folks kind of in the middle that are willing but don't yet know how to do it, particularly your managers and supervisors who get so little training in most organizations. Skilling up all employees to create and sustain equitable, inclusive, socially just organizations for years to come. Please use the links below to learn more about each of the 3 conference tracks, and feel free to contact me at any time. I'd be glad to have a conversation, answer any of your questions, or once you purchase it, if you want to think through how can you use it, be glad to hop on a call. And I wish you a wonderful year, a new year of dynamic professional development. Take care.